Welcome into Fire Mountain Gems and Beads. I'm Patti, I'm a jewelry designer here. And today I'm going to show you how to make this amazing malachite bracelet. This is a really cool bracelet because it combines the cabochon setting with these wrapped elements to make kind of a modified bangle. I really love it. There's movement in it, but it's still rigid on your wrist. You know, people don't always think of malachite when they think of gemstones right away, but malachite is one of my absolute favorite gemstones. The amazing striping and shading you have from very dark forest green to a really brilliant bright green. It's an amazing stone. It has so much life and vibrancy. Let me talk about some of the elements that are going to be in this piece today. So we're going to be using a cabochon stone, which is kind of a polished domed stone in a sterling silver setting with some sterling wire. And then we're going to be using these wonderful graduated faceted malachite rondelles in several different sizes. And then we overwrap those with the wire, and then we're gonna make our own little clasp at the end. It's a unique bracelet, and I think you're gonna love it. It's actually pretty easy to do. Just a little bit of practice, and you're gonna have it down. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with the project. And you can see I have the little earrings that match. By the time we're finished with this project, you're really going to know how to make the earrings too. They're very similar techniques, and the earrings are actually easier. For either one of these, there's one materials list. They go together, they're match set, and you can find that in the description below. So if you want to make this, you'll know exactly what you need to pick up. All right, so let's start with the setting because we need to have that ready. So I'm going to bring my little sterling silver setting here. It has all these prongs on the side. You can see that. It's a really pretty delicate design. And I'm just going to drop the cabochon in there. I can do that just with my fingers, just like that. And now I'm going to orient the cabochon the way that I want it to be. So I could leave it kind of crosswise because the bracelet's going to kind of go out from here. I can have it this way so the pattern is more up and down. I can have it more in line with the bracelet. I think that's what I'm going to do on this one. That's what I did on the original. So I'm just going to kind of manipulate that around in there. I might even pick it up and just kind of so the back is open. I can kind of grab it through both sides and manipulate it a little bit. Okay, I feel pretty good about that. The next thing we're going to do, I'm going to move this dish out of the way here with all of our little pieces in it so I have some space to work, as I'm going to get a bezel roller. This is a bezel roller. This little tool kind of will rock down all of the little points on the bezel to keep the cabochon in place. And I have a kind of specific way that I like to do it. Everyone's different. So I'm going to move these little loops at the end so I can put my fingers right on those. And I'm just going to hold it here. And I'm going to manipulate down just maybe one or two of these prongs with my bezel roller. See how I put it kind of flat on the table and then roll it in? Then I'm going to go to the opposite side. And I'm going to do some on the opposite side. And the reason that you do this is that if you do all of one side first, the cabochon, if it's not real tight in the setting, it can get kind of scooched to one side, and you want it to be really centered. So now I'm going to move it. So I'm going to do some kind of on opposite ends here. So I kind of got 4 directions. Not everyone does this, but I think it's a really nice way to keep your cabochon centered. Okay, and so from here, I'm just going to kind of hold it between my fingers, and I'm going to roll down each one of those prongs. Now that it's being held pretty securely. I'm going to go to the other side and do the opposite side now. Doesn't take very long. The prongs are really easy to set in this kind of a setting. And you want them to really lay down nice and flat against the cabochon. You might have to go over them a couple times sometimes. I'm going to get them all mainly down, and then we'll go back and make sure that they're all nicely set. So you can see in the bracelet here that we've got 2 sections of wire. Let me unhook that so you can see that they're separate. We've got one over here and one over here. They're about 18 inches a piece. That's a little more than I need, but I always like to have a little extra wire just in case. So we're going to start with this side with a little hook. And you can see that I made a wrapped loop at the end of this that just goes right on the loop of that cab. And so we're going to set this kind of up out of the way a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and cut 18 inches of wire. That's it right about there. Okay, so we've got our wire. What we're going to do next is offset the wire. So we need a longer tail to go over the overwraps and to make the hook. So we want it quite a bit longer. Just about like that. So we're leaving about 4 or 5 inches at one end longer than the other. And I'm bringing it to kind of a gentle point here. What I'm going to do is take my round nose pliers, and I'm going to make a little loop here. So it's kind of on the opposite side of the wire. So we're going to have one coming out one way and one coming out another way. Then I'm going to take this shorter one, and we'll just put the round nose pliers in the little lee here, and we'll bring that down like kind of like a lollipop on a stick. So the shorter one is going to be the base wire, as you can see here. Just round that out a little bit, that we're going to thread the beads onto. And then this longer tail coming up is what is going to be the overwrap and then create the hook. But before we start doing that, we actually have to put it onto the cabochon. So let's go ahead and thread that on. You can thread it on either side. It doesn't matter. It's just going to go into that loop. All right, so we've got that threaded onto the cabochon, so that'll be securely tied into the piece. Then I'm going to go ahead and clamp the loop here. And with my longer tail, I'm going to wrap a couple of times around the base tail. And kind of get this out of the way so I can move my cabochon. There we go. And we're just going tightly a couple of times. All right, so now you can see that we have this started. The next thing I'm going to do is thread on the first set of beads. We've got a small, a medium, a large, another medium, and a small. So let's go ahead and do that. There we go. And now we're just going to take this wire, the longer wire, and we're going to hold the beads as tightly as we can down toward the loop with one hand, and we're going to just kind of make a nice gently curved overwrap over all of those beads. Not too tightly, we want it fairly loose. And then at the end of those beads, I'm going to kind of curve it around there a little bit. And I'm going to bring it back around so I make a single loop around that wire. And we'll adjust this a little bit. All right, so that's starting to come together. We have the first kind of piece of one side. Now we're going to thread on that same combination of beads again. And we're going to let them fall right against the loop that we just made in that wire. Then we're going to come up and we're going to make that same overwrap gently, not too tight against the beads. We want it to kind of stand out a little bit, and we're holding the beads really tightly down against that loop. And the wire will just go right around in another loop here and back, ready to make a third set of beads here. And right now, I want to make sure that there's enough kind of play in this wire. I'm going to start curving that a little bit We don't want it to get too tight, so I want it to kind of end up in the arc that we want it to be in. So we have enough space in this wire. We're not too tight on that. All right, one more set of those beads. All right. Then we're going to take the wire and we're going to gently overwrap it again. And we have to make sure that those beads are pushed against the loop that I just made when we're making the overwrap. And then before you tie it up, just make sure they're nice and tight. Okay, so we're going to come around and make one more loop there. Okay, we're going to curve it kind of how we want it. Now, before you end this up, we're going to make the little hook that goes here. And we're going to leave both tails free for right now. Okay. So I'm going to bend one tail out and keep one tail going the direction that I want it. I'm just going to kind of, this loop is a little big, so I'm just cleaning that loop up and making it a little tighter. There we go. Then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm just going to bend that straight out. We want both of them kind of parallel for a minute. And if there are any bends in my wire from bending it around, I'm just going to kind of straighten them a bit, just a little bit. They don't need a lot. Okay. And we'll just leave this kind of out to the side for right now. All right, so with this guy, the one that's coming straight out the center, we're going to measure how big of a hook we want. You can make a larger hook or a smaller hook with half hard wire. You can do kind of either. With softer wire, you have to make a smaller hook. So I'm going to guesstimate how far of a distance it is from the base here all the way up and around to the end of that hook. So I'm going to guesstimate it's right about there, probably about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches. And I'm just going to make a 90-degree bend in that wire. And then I'm going to close it nice and tight with my chain nose pliers. Just like that. Then down here, I'm going to hold it nice and firm here, and I want the wires to be closely together. And I'm going to take this shorter wire and I'm going to make it like a 90-degree bend here right against the pliers. And I'm going to make just one loop around here. And I'm going to grab my pliers so I can have a little more pressure on that. Okay, that's good. Just enough to secure it, and then I'm snipping that little short tail off. Okay, now I'm going to take this wire that's remaining and I'm going to wrap it a little bit here. Nice tight wraps. And then I'm going to snip that tail off. Then whenever I snip a tail, I always like to just scoosh it in and make sure that there's nothing pokey that's going to be touching you. And then we can kind of manipulate this a little bit. I want where we cut it off to be on the bottom, so I'm just going to manipulate that around a little bit. Wire is great that way. It's very forgiving. And then I'm just going to kind of scooch this around so it's both the wires are nice and straight. All right. Next thing I'm going to do is take the end of the wire here, just a little bit of it, and I'm going to make a little bend out because this is the easiest place to do that right now while it's straight. Then in the very middle of this, kind of at the end of my barrel of round nose pliers, I'm going to push that down and around, and we're making the hook that we saw, just like that. This one's a little bigger than the other one. That's fine. All right, and then I might take my chain nose pliers and just adjust things and make it sure everything kind of looks very gently, squeezing around and making sure everything looks aligned. All right, there is one half of the bracelet. Oh, and you want the hook to face out, so let's move that around. That's one thing, something people don't realize. You always, when you're making a bracelet, have your hook face out, or a necklace, because you don't want the kind of edge of the hook to be hitting your skin. It's more comfortable. Okay, now that we've got that half done, the other half is super similar. So we're going to go ahead and start it. I will get all the beads put on and overwrapped, and then I'll show you how to make the eye at the other ends to finish it off. Okay, we've got 2 of the overwraps done, and we're just doing the final one here on the other side of the bracelet. I'm going to make that little overwrap here. Bring that around a couple of times. Let me kind of adjust that with my chain nose pliers there. All right. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is make the little eye that the hook will attach to hook it onto your wrist. So I'm going to make a wire wrap loop here. I'm going to leave a little bit of space for some wraps and make a 90-degree bend. And then I'm going to make a nice big loop for my eye. I don't want it to be too small. Just like that. And then I'm going to turn it around. Because my non-dominant hand is my left, I'm going to clamp that over here. And we're going to take this tail a little bit out of the way for a minute. And then I don't need this much tail to wrap with. I think I will cut off just a little bit so it's easier to wrap her a little bit closer in. And then I like to wrap with my round nose because they're always just handy right there, but you can wrap with whatever pliers you like. And I'm just going to make my wrapped loop. I'm going to bring it down a couple like that. And then I'm going to snip off that short tail, making sure I don't cut that bigger tail. And you can see how the tails are going in opposite directions. I'm going to finish wrapping this tail so it meets that one. I'm going to cut a little bit off because I don't need so much. And I am going to hold it in my hand over here because we can't clamp this side with the plier. And I'm going to use my pliers to get it nice and tight. And I'm going to kind of tighten up what's already there, bring it around, and make it meet the wrap from the other side. Then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm just going to go around in a little circle and tuck everything in. Kind of adjust my loop a little bit. If it got a little off round, you can stick your round nose pliers in there and round it back out. And there we go. And now I'm just going to adjust my wire so everything looks right for my bracelet. Make all the curves right. Like what you see so far? Click on the link in the description below to sign up for our email list and learn more about jewelry making techniques and supplies. And there you have your beautiful malachite bangle, all hand wire wrapped, so easy to do. I know you can just do this at home. Well, thank you so much for being with us here today. I hope you loved the video and I hope you love the design. Make sure to like that video, subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Facebook. If you decide to make one, make sure and post a picture of it. We'd love to see that. And for more start to finish projects like this, make sure and check out our library on our website. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.